You're listening to Grown and Growing with Sonia Hamlin. What's up, everybody? Welcome back to Grown and Growing. Glad you're here. This week, we're talking about divorce. Yeah. Conscious uncoupling, as Gwyneth Paltrow described it all those years ago when she was divorcing Chris Martin. I love the way celebrities kind of spin things so they don't sound like us common folk. Like she couldn't just get a regular divorce like us. She had to consciously uncouple from Chris. And it's also funny because Tia Murray, who is one of the twins from, Tia and Tamara, sister, she described her divorce as a graduation. So that's a very nice way to put it. But we're getting down to the nitty gritty of divorces, not in the sense of should you or shouldn't you, right? That's a very personal decision that you really have to decide for yourself. But really from the perspective of someone who has seen and worked with couples through the divorce process. That said, my guest this week is attorney Sondra Douglas. Sondra has over 20 years of experience practicing in both Maryland and DC. Sondra is a fierce advocate for her clients, both inside and outside the courtroom. As a former Maryland public defender, she has built an outstanding track record based on strategic negotiation and litigation. Currently, she is with the law firm Stein Sperling. And before that, she ran her own successful law practice for over 13 years. If you want to know more about Sondra, her full bio is in the show notes. But without further ado, let's get into this topic. Welcome, Sondra Douglas, to the Grown and Growing podcast. I'm happy to have you tonight. How are you?
I am great, and thank you for having me. I'm super excited.
I am super excited to have you because I have so many questions about divorce and, your experience with divorce. I want to get all behind the scenes because as we were just discussing, I know people who have gotten divorces, but it's rare that you really, at least I haven't gotten into the intricate details of what happens in a divorce. And I really want to learn from your perspective or for you to give us your perspective doing this being a lawyer for almost 20 years and practicing, divorce and family law for how long has it been? Like 15 years?
Oh, over 20 years.
Over 20 years. Okay. So you got a lot of experience. Why divorce? So my husband's a lawyer. He does criminal, civil, but he learned very early on in his law career that he did not want to do family law. Specifically divorces, because he was just like, a lot of his clients come from referrals and their friends, and it was just too much emotional baggage to kind of get in there. He didn't want to do it. So why do you choose family law and specifically divorces?
So I will say that family law chose me. I didn't necessarily choose family law. I thought I was going to be a corporate attorney. Okay. But I found myself many years ago, I joined a small law firm and pretty much no one in the firm wanted to do family. They were like, no, it's too emotional, it's too high stress. And I started taking those cases and doing well at it. And I really could separate the emotional side from the legal analytical side of what needed to happen in the case. But I also had the compassion and the empathy for my clients, which I was able to thread that needle, if you will, of, okay, I'm your legal consultant, I'm not your therapist needle, that sometimes you have to walk that tightrope when representing a person with family law related needs. So I think family law chose me and it really fits my personality and I do enjoy it. I'm one of the strange ones that they're like, send it to her. Highly conflict cases is my specialty. That's what
really.
Yes.
So you like the divorces that are contentious and like, so I was gonna.
Yes, all of the things, high stake, contentious custody, marital property distribution cases, just everything under the sun. I'm a litigator. So
Mm-hmm.
I see the case from sitting at the trial table. I see it in reverse.
Mm-hmm.
From the day one that I meet the client, I see it in reverse. And so that's just the way my mind works.
Mm-hmm.
And, if my clients get to benefit from that.
Yeah. So you said you're a litigator. And a litigator is the lawyer that likes to go to court, like who likes to sit in front of a judge. So
So go ahead.
are most of your clients women or men, or do you do a mix of both?
So it is so, I was just talking to my colleague today about this. So when I first started my career, the majority of my clients were men fighting for custody of their children.
Hmm.
And it has evolved. Like I developed a reputation of just representing a lot of different men who wanted custody of their children, and I still do. But as times have changed and as the world has changed,
Mm-hmm.
I find myself representing a lot of women. I'm in the DMV and I'm barred in DC and Maryland. And so I found myself these days and in the past couple of years representing a lot of accomplished women.
Okay.
And that has made me oh so proud because I get a front row seat on the wealth that they've built and managing and helping them protect that.
Mm.
So
That's
yeah,
good because it actually mirrors like where we are in society. Like women are, more educated, the most educated
mhm,
here, particularly Black women.
mhm.
We are more breadwinners. So we're in that breadwinner role now. And so we're a lot more savvy, not only about our finances, but the type of relationships we want. Let me tell you guys, the stakes are high. The
They
stakes
sh-
are the bar is high. The bar is
yes,
high.
it's high. I represent women who are, leading Fortune 500 companies. I mean, these women are out here just doing, I'm like, you all are doing it. I'm so proud of you. And own real estate in DC and Maryland and all over. And, they're doing well. They're doing well. And I couldn't be more proud of them.
So I'm going to ask you, this may be a little controversial, but I'm interested if, we just said all of those positive things about the progress of women and how women have changed. Do you think that has anything to do with the divorces that you do? Like that dynamic changing or potentially changing in the relationship, or at least changing in society? Does that play a role in the reasons for the divorce that you see?
Oh, I really do. I think there's no longer the day where women are like, oh, you got to stay home. And if there's a person whose career needs to come second, it's the woman, where history in the past, it's like, oh, you stayed home and the man went and, became the breadwinner. Now it's changing, right? You have women who are really just flourishing in the workplace, and there becomes that pressure of, okay, well, who's going to stay home with the kids, or who's going to take Johnny here, there, or everywhere. And you have some women who are like, well, it ain't me. And so it's, things have changed and evolved. And I think sometimes if you don't know how to communicate and deal with that, like that,
Mm-hmm.
really, it's a real issue. It's a real challenge. Childcare. I think we all have our stories I personally, about childcare and how I made it through.
Right.
But it's real. It's real. There's challenges and things that have to happen in order for the modern family to survive.
Mm-hmm.
Just day in and day out. Who's cooking dinner? Who's doing this? Who's doing that?
Right.
And sometimes those roles get blurred. And then, if you can't resolve it, they end up coming
Yeah.
to see me.
Well, yeah, half of the marriages today, I think over half, ended divorce. So you're very busy. You're very busy now.
Mhm.
But I also wonder, do you know if your clients do, when they walk away from a situation like that, and maybe the relationship has, run its course, or they've outgrown the relationship or what have you, do you find that they get married again, or do they not want to get married?
So I see how I just perked up. I got excited because just today I said to my client who, I mean, she went through a very contentious divorce, and she had more, assets, um, had more exposure, as we call it, than her husband. And I said to her today, I said, and you know what? I I pray that you find love again, that love will find you again. I am a woman of faith, so I will say to my clients, I pray. That's just it just comes out. What's it
Right.
like my grandmother used to say, what's in you gonna come out, and that just comes out. And I told her, I pray you find love again. I enjoy getting the wedding invitations. And they do get remarried, they do find new relationships again, and then they also call me for those prenups, because they learned, right? I'm like, you do not get married again until you better come and get that prenup, because it's important. It doesn't have to be as contentious if you do.
Okay. So let's talk about that, like the prenup.
Okay.
Okay, so there's the prenup and there's the postnup. Let's start with the prenup.
Okay.
Do you walk couples through, first of all, who should get a prenup? What is it and who should get one? Let's start with that.
Everybody should get a prenup. The old days are gone where it's like, oh, if you get a prenup, then you're saying we're not going to last. No, that's not what we're saying. What we're saying is while you all are getting along and it's not contentious and you have a quote unquote reasonable perspective and you want to know how you can live life in the future with this person, have the conversation now. Have that conversation ahead of time. Don't wait until you're like, I don't trust this person anymore. I don't like this person anymore. I want to get at this person. Without those feelings involved, you can sit down and talk about what is yours, what is theirs, what should be built together, and have an honest conversation. And I actually think it forces you to talk about finances, because in every prenup that I draft, we have exhibits to talk about what your financial picture looks like right now. How many, premarital counselors like, did you tell them what your credit score was? Did you tell them what you like? That's an open, frank conversation that should be happening. And I think that if you look at a prenup through that lens, it's helpful. Then you have the person who may inherit, a lot of property or assets, or, be named in a trust. That person needs to have a prenup. So it's very clear, like parents who worked very hard and their children are getting married, parents are like, wait a minute, this is my blood, sweat, and tears that has produced this. In my community, we have a lot of people who are, building real estate portfolios. Well, they're building that using, sweat equity that their children will inherit a piece of that pie. I'm sure the intention is for their children to inherit, not if the marriage doesn't work out, walks away with it. So there's just so many. I could talk about countless stories of parents pass away and their child isn't doing well. And then, everything they worked for is kind of just pissed away. And that's the real part of it. So I work, and the wonderful thing here at Stein Sperling, I work with a whole set of estate planning attorneys who, when we draft the prenup, I see through the lens of divorce, they see through the lens of the estate planning piece. So it's a nice marriage between the two about meeting my clients' needs. So that's, I can go on and on of just the different scenarios and the different types of people who could benefit from us.
So how long does that process take? I feel like I can see it being a really tough conversation to have, and argumentative, particularly if one person has more than the other person.
Now they're what we call it.
Yeah. If they're on equal footing, then it's probably not as contentious. But how do you get them to do the prenup and then walk down the aisle?
Because again, because during that period of time, everybody's getting along. Oh, we want to be married forever. Or they come to me, they're young, and their parents have brought them to me. And they're
Mhm.
like, go see her and make sure all my inheritance is going to be covered, and then you get them, the young fiance is like, I don't really care about this. I don't want to deal with this. And so you have to say, well, look, this is how your parents want you. I'm like an extra arm of the parent. This is
Right.
how they want to protect you. So I think that it really just depends on the scenario,
Mhm.
of how, what their needs are. It hasn't been my experience that it's too contentious. And also the other party has an attorney.
Okay.
So I can talk language in the same language. We're speaking the same language. And it's like, okay, this person's the money spouse, but oh, maybe we'll negotiate anything they build together that can
Mhm.
be theirs to share. So there's all kinds of things we can negotiate, terms we can
Okay.
negotiate.
And the one thing you mentioned to me when we first talked, kind of offline, are post numps, and I'm just like, it's hard for me to wrap my mind around how you get people to agree to a post after the fact. Like, all right, I'm building this over here, and now I want a post nump. Like, I feel like if I don't know, unless we reach that conclusion together, I feel like it would be a weird thing to do after the fact. It's like, oh, you're doing well. So now how do we approach doing a post nump? So talk about post numps.
So postnups, is an agreement after you've gotten married, and you can negotiate sets and define what's marital versus non-marital. And so it's interesting. I got a call from someone one time, and they're like, well, I want to buy this house. And I don't want to live with my spouse anymore. And I'm like, okay, all right, well, let's figure this out. Or I get a phone call that says, you know what, there's been some other people brought into the marriage, and I don't know if
Mm.
I want to continue to be married, or I don't know, where I'm not ready to get a divorce right now. But what I do know is, trust has been broken, and this is how I want to move forward, right? So you
Okay.
have that type of situation. Or you have someone who wants to start a business, and the other spouse is like, I don't want my credit on the line for this. You and your partners have started this business, and I don't know how involved I want to be. And that other person's like, oh, great. So if I hit the jackpot, are you also saying you're not going to be entitled to any part of that business as well? So there's like
Correct.
a million different scenarios where a postnup is appropriate. But it's through me getting to know my client, and really figuring out, what are you trying to accomplish? What is this about, right?
Mhm.
Developing that relationship of trust for them to tell me, what are you trying to protect? What is this about? And for some, it's about, they're trying to protect their feelings. They're trying to protect, like, look, I've been burned. I don't want to be burned. I don't want to be ignorant to what my exposure is, right?
Mhm.
So let's have a frank conversation. Maybe you don't want to get a divorce. Maybe you want to build the relationship, but you want to also press that stop, pause button, and let's reflect on where we are now and what our asset picture looks like from
Mhm.
this point on.
Sorry about that.
Oh no, I didn't
So
see it.
with post numps, it you can get it for any of the number of reasons that you mentioned. Do you find that there's resistance, like
Oh
that
yeah,
one party comes and you
yeah.
have to kind
Sometimes
of
you gotta, yeah, take baby steps. Sometimes you gotta take baby steps. Like, what is the most important thing you are trying to protect? What are you trying to
Mhm.
accomplish? Maybe we need to brainstorm doing it a different way. Maybe this is not the situation where I come in and say, sign this post nut. That may
Right.
not be the way to go. It really just depends. Um, it depends on the client that I'm servicing.
So you think that all couples should have a prenup, and if they don't do that, that they should go back and get a postnup?
Well, no, I'm not saying every single couple should.
Okay.
Because you've got that couple that's been married for 50 years and has
Correct.
built everything from the ground up together. So I'm not sure. I mean, yeah, you could, if the other party, I guess, was willing to waive their right to everything,
Mm-hmm.
possibly, but I can't see that other person doing that. It could happen. It could happen. But I think that when I say every person with a prenup, that's more speaking to the community of where I'm serving this at this
Now.
point in time.
Okay.
Like
Okay.
that type of client, that woman that's, has built her career and she wants to protect potentially being exposed, and having to, whatever she has built up in her career, having that just be marital property, as she continues to just soar.
Correct.
So speaking to that
So,
client.
so while we're on this prenup and postnup vein, I do want to ask about alimony because I feel like the perception, or at least my perception of alimony, is that it is for rich people, rich men whose wives are stay at home moms for 15, 20 years. He leaves and he has to pay her alimony because she, hasn't, she's forsaken her career to raise the kids. Is that how alimony works? Or, we just talked about a dynamic where women are the breadwinners now. Do we see more women paying alimony? When does alimony come into the picture?
So it really depends on several factors as outlined by the statute. It depends on several factors. So what was their lifestyle like when they lived together as husband and wife? What's the educational level of the spouse, both married of the parties? Do we have someone who has a high school diploma and we have someone who has a doctorate? Do we have someone who
What does that have to do with it? What is education level?
education level? Because it comes from the whole premise of if you're educated, you make more money. But that's not always necessarily true.
Right.
It could be, are one of the parties, do they run a business? Is it a lucrative business? Did the wife stay at home and care for the kids while this person ran the business and built the business and built a lucrative business? So it's not so much, it's not about if it's a female or a male,
Right.
because a woman could definitely pay alimony to her male partner if she's married to a male partner. I mean, who was the singer? Mary J. Blige showed us that, right?
He
Which
paid
I don't
alimony?
anybody. Yes,
I didn't know that.
yes,
So, okay, wait a minute now.
yeah.
Okay, so I have a couple of questions.
And how
One,
did you get married without a prenup? Or I had somebody was not advising her correctly,
I
but
did hear that
I'll leave that alone.
when she
I'll leave
walked away
that
from
alone.
that marriage, she had like $100 million in debt to the IRS. So I was like, somebody was advising her very wrong. But
Yeah.
is alimony, what are the grounds for asking for alimony? I used to hear that grounds for alimony is, if you want to maintain the lifestyle that you had when you were married. Is that
That's one of the fact, not just maintain, but how disproportionate will it be?
okay?
Will one spouse be eating at McDonald's and the other one's eating at Ruth Chris? Then it also, if you have children, right?
Correct.
That's not, it's not just if you have children, but it's taking multiple of factors and looking at, did you travel around the world? What was your lifestyle?
Mhm.
Where will there be a significant drop in that lifestyle? Will the kids, are the kids accustomed to going to private school and their bill was paid in full and now they have to go to, public school? Not as if anything's wrong with public school,
Right.
but
It's
it's
just a change.
yeah, is it's the change? Has this child been in private school for, uh, all of the 8 years that they've been in school, and now they have to create new friends and go to a new neighborhood. The court, are you used to living in Potomac?
Right.
It's all of it's the whole ball of wax. It's the whole situation of how is your life changing now that you are getting a divorce, because the court wants to keep it as similar as possible, not, but also rehabilitative alimony, right? Can this person who is seeking alimony, are they able to become self-supporting?
Mm-hmm.
Or are they never going to be able to become self-supporting? So then it's like, well, maybe it's indefinite.
That's what I was going to ask. Like, how long typically do people have to pay alimony?
Like, it really depends on it depends on the circumstance, how long they were married. Again, all the factors that I already stated as well.
Mm-hmm. And you can get alimony.
It's not just, oh, let me check the box, I want alimony, I'm going to get it. It really, no, it's not automatic.
Okay. And they see alimony as separate than the child support, because I would think like schooling and all of that is separate, would go under child support, and then alimony is something different.
It is separate, but if alimony and support is awarded, it's taken into consideration.
Okay. Because I once read, I'm an avid podcast listener, and I once listened to this podcast about this woman in Florida who has to pay this man alimony for the rest of his life. And it wasn't as though she was wealthy. She wasn't even wealthy. And she had to pay him alimony for the rest of his life. I was like, forever? This was in Florida. I mean, Florida. Florida. Florida is weird down there.
Yeah.
But I thought that was weird, but that they were kind of on equal footing, but she was required to pay alimony for him.
Yeah, and the court takes into like the age of the parties as well. Are we talking about somebody who's 30 years old, or we're talking about somebody who's 60 years old? Are we talking about a 5-year marriage, or are we talking about like a 30-year marriage? It's, and then your ability to work, like I said about become self-supporting. Do you have a disability? Do you are you healthy? Are you have any injuries that preclude you from being able to work? So there's a lot. And then, like you already brought up, staying home, caring for the kids, that we call contribution, non-monetary contribution to the marriage. So it's all those factors, not just one. But yeah, you look at all those factors and balance that out.
So what do people misunderstand about divorce? Like when a client comes to you, what do you wish every client would do when they are preparing for a divorce?
Get a therapist. That is my number one. Oh my goodness. I've really added a therapist at LSW onto my team, because I am your legal strategist. I help you strategize the best way to reduce your exposure and the best way to accomplish your goals, right? If they're realistic, and we'll talk about, realistic goals. But it's emotional, and I walk aside my clients during that emotional journey, but sharing about how you're feeling. Yes, I will empathize with you, but I am not a therapist. I don't possess those tools nor the qualifications to be able to help you navigate through that. I can tell you you'll be okay. I'll tell you you'll make it through. I'll tell you, I hope you find love again. I can tell you all of that. But the sounding board about how you deal with the mental health component of it is definitely, you want a therapist or a divorce coach.
A divorce coach.
A divorce coach, yes.
I've never even heard of that.
Oh, yes. It's a real thing.
Okay. And so they basically walk alongside you with because the way that I see it, divorce, normally when you're going through a very emotional time, somebody dies, or, you something happens to your house. It's like, you're not supposed to make big decisions, right? You just want to kind of let it lay low.
Right.
get over the emotional component of whatever happened to you, and then go
Right.
make decisions. But in this case, it could be highly emotional,
Mhm.
and you have the components of, well, let me look at our finances. Let me look at the way we parent our children. Very important decisions you're making at a time when you're super emotional. So I can, I applaud you for, even suggesting that people get a therapist to during this process, because I'm sure it'll drive you crazy.
Absolutely. And you have the spender and the saver. So if I'm representing the saver, sometimes they're floored when we say, okay, look, we did a dissipation chart. Okay, so dissipation is a word for basically you spent the money during the marriage and you didn't spend it wisely, right? And you kind of just ditched it off. And now that money is gone, and I'm pulling up on the screen all the money that your spouse has spent, and me telling you may be the first time you knew about it. Your spouse may have a
Wow.
gambling problem and you didn't even know. So we went and looked at the bank records and are telling you, okay, we're looking at 1,500 to 2,000 a month that he or she has been spending at the casino. I mean,
Wow.
so it's like, I hear I'm landing this bomb on you, and what do they do with it? What do they do with that information? It's
Yeah.
like all they knew was their finances were going like ships in a night, but they didn't know how well in the night it was passing by. So,
Right.
when I deliver that information, it's a very hard, but I have to tell them because that's a part of my job. My job is to show them what they may not know, not just because, oh, I want to be nosy and show you what you don't know, but how can
Mhm.
I take this information and say, okay, well, let's cut this slice of the pie off because you misappropriately handled marital funds. So,
Wow. That's interesting. I never thought about, like, I knew you were dividing, assets, but you really get in to the business of, like, looking at bank statements and trying to find all the money, and are you hiding money or all of this other stuff. Does it also are you also at a point where somebody comes to you when they're suspecting that a person has been unfaithful? Do you help try to uncover that? Like, when it comes to, if they've chosen obviously to have a monogamous relationship, and one person decides they don't want to no more, how does that do you help them with that? Do you get an investigator to help them get proof? Like, how much of it, when you go into a divorce, how much is it like, look, we about to crush this
so
person?
listen, now you speaking my language. Now you speaking my language. Now you like, so that is the wonderful thing. I love about where I work and what I do. I have all kinds of weapons and all kinds of tools and all kinds of access. Like I tell my clients, we can go to 0 to 60 real quick. What do you what and sometimes I have the conversation, especially in the mental health arena, like if you have a spouse that is suffering with some mental health issues, oh, we've got psychologists, you name it, we got it. But what's your budget for this divorce? I mean, let's talk about the money.
Let's
You
talk.
know,
That's one of my questions. Why are divorces so
the
expensive?
money.
Yeah.
If you want to spend 100,000 on a divorce, we got you covered. We can give you every expert under the sun. We can give you a financial analysis, a CPA, whatever you like, we can do that. But at the end of the day, what I talk to my clients about is that what you want to do? Like, is that
Right.
required? Is that what you want to do? If you want to do that, we can assist you and support you there. If you want a private investigator to follow them around, if you want to take your car to the shop to see where they put that device in to track you, we can do all that.
Hmm.
So we possess the ability to meet that client's need.
Right.
However, that's not the only person that we represent.
Mm.
And I want to be clear about that because before you needed, 10,000 experts, people get divorced without 10,000 experts. So
Correct.
you have to really ask yourself, and I have this conversation with my clients, like, okay, and it's hard, especially when you're parenting kids and you think your spouse is spiraling mentally. It's like, okay, but what's required to prove that? You can't just say, my spouse is not well, right? You may have to get a custody evaluator. You may have to get a mental health examination. You may have to, then if you have to hire someone to review the evaluation, and if you don't like the evaluation, you have to hire somebody to rebut it. Then you have to get if you want the evaluation to be done of the parent and of the child. I mean, that's how the budget can just balloon, right? So it really depends. And I have that conversation with my client. I'm not just going to go start hiring all these people, and we can't because they have to pay for it. So, it really just depends on what their budget is, what the issues are.
Correct. I was going to say, do you ever steer your clients away from being revengeful, vindictive? Like, how much do you play into that? Like, do you ever in your mind practicing, do you ever be like, oh my God, this is so wrong, or this is so mean, or this is so, like, how do you separate your own emotions from what is happening with your clients?
So I tell my client, I'm very frank with my clients. I'm not a puppet. Okay. I'm not a puppet. You brought me on for my legal strategy, my I'm your legal and trusted advisor. That is who I am. I can't right all the wrongs. I can't right all the wrongs for what your spouse did to you. I believe you reap what you sow. And so I said, make her pay, make her miserable, like, and when I hear that, my response, have you talked to your therapist? Have you talked to your therapist? I'm miserable. But while you're receiving invoices that reflect me making her miserable, just remember you're paying for me to try to, and I think what they're really trying to say is make her do more work, make her
don't make it easy.
Don't make it easy. I can do that all day long. That's great. But I also want to do what makes sense. We're not just going to be around here just making up stuff,
Right.
Just realize if you want that to happen, just be ready for the invoice that accompanies making it. Because while you're making her life miserable, you're going to get an invoice and you're going to have to pay for that. If you're all game for that, just know I'm going to have that conversation with you. So yeah, I mean, it's hurtful. People are hurt. They're coming to me at their highest emotional state.
Right.
I know that. And I tell them, I'm like, what are you going to really get out of that? I had clients say, well, I don't want him to be, how can I stop them from seeing the child or whatever, something to that effect. I don't remember. And I'm just like, okay, you can't do that. The law precludes you from, if the parent's alive, and you can't do that. I can't do that. I can't do nothing with that. I understand.
I have a question for you. So did you watch The Best Man, not The Best Man Final Chapters, the one that recently came out where they did like the episodes? Did you watch that?
No.
Probably not, because you're very busy, but I did.
I'm all behind on the good tea.
Hold on, but so there was a controversy where Taye Diggs' character, and he's married to Sanaa Lathan's character, I don't remember their names, and they were going through a divorce, and Sanaa Lathan's character dropped during the divorce proceedings, I guess during the negotiations, that she was moving to Africa with the child, and and Taye Diggs, it was like, do I let her? At first he was like pissed, like, no, you're not taking my child. That's my child. And then people were like, well, you were kind of a bad husband, so you probably should let her take the child. And so it kind of divided social media as to, was she right for taking the child, moving to Africa and leaving him in New York? And should he have stopped her from doing that? When it comes to taking kids, like moving like that, parents can't just move to another country with the kid, right? They have to have permission from the other spouse. Like, how does that work?
Oh, okay. So as soon as you said Africa, I'm thinking Hague Convention. And I know you're like, well, what is that? So there's certain countries that are a part of the Hague Convention that if a parent does leave and takes the child to another country, that there's an agreement between us and the United States that you could bring the child back. So that's why I'm perking my ears up. I'm like, because that's an issue. So that would just leave, that's not a yes or no answer, because then I want to know, are they divorced? What's the terms of their divorce? Who has legal custody? Who has physical custody? Right. What is the language of their judgment of absolute divorce? So like my brain starts spinning, like, or are they in the middle and they have not been divorced?
It's a TV show. Right? We see all that. We just,
but see, this is what you get. This is the part. But so there, I'm like, oh, I got more questions. So like, did they not?
I do have a question. You said something about legal custody versus physical custody. What's the difference? I know physical custody means the child is with you, but how is that different than legal custody, or how do they work together?
So physical custody is where the children or child physically resides. Is it going to be your house or my house? And how many days of the week are they at my house or your house? Legal custody is, we call those big ticket items. So to discuss about the child. So like, are they going to be, what's the religion? Are they going to be not raised a religion at all? Are they going to be Muslim, Jewish, Christian? What are they going to be? How are you going to raise them in what faith? What is the decision about that? Are you choosing public or private school? Are we doing a naturopath doctor, or are we doing a pediatrician, MD? It's those big ticket items. Are we going private school? Are we going public school? What are we? How are we gonna? What are the big ticket items? Are we going to? How are we going to decide these issues? Are we homeschooling? What was big during COVID? Are we giving the shot? Or are we not giving the shot?
Oh,
are we homeschooling? Are we not homeschooling? We saw a lot of activity around those issues during that time. Or remember when COVID first happened, it was like, stay put, everybody, don't go anywhere. And then you have the parent that is supposed to have access, and the other parent is denying access. Well, the governor said don't go anywhere, so that includes coming to your house. We were real busy then.
Oh my gosh.
The COVID over at your house is the same COVID over there. But it just, legal custody there's those big ticket items. That's how.
Okay. It's funny when you were going down that list of things that could be decided, or what people are, deciding on during a divorce. It just clicked that I'm like, these are all the things you need to talk about before you get married. All of those things, because eventually you're going to discuss them, because they're going to come up in your marriage, and you're either going to talk about it before you get married or work it out during the marriage, or you definitely going to talk about it during the divorce, which is so interesting to me. Like, it's going to come up, and you rather it come up in the beginning when you still have many options of tying yourself to this person, versus at the end when you are, when you don't feel as lovely, you as favorable to this person. You're trying to make some of the hardest decisions that you have to make with a person that you don't even like at that moment.
Speaking of which, I'll never forget, a judge said this, and it was so true. When you get either a divorce, or if it's just a custody case and custody is being split, everything has a spotlight, right? When you are co-parenting within the same house, You know who's the person who's going to be the disciplinarian. You know the person who's not. You know the person who's going to give you extra money. You know the parent who's not. You know the parent who's going to allow you to stay out a little bit later. You know the parent who's not. But when you know the parent who's going to pack the lunch and know when it's out of uniform days or when it's, field trip day, and you got that type A parent, they're gonna know everything, be on it. And when you're living within the same house, it's not a big deal. It's like, okay, good job. Kudos to you. You have the parent who does the homework. You have the parent who doesn't do the homework. But when you have parents that are contentious and constantly fighting, it's like, he didn't send a note with her outside shoes versus her inside shoes. Or he didn't know that you were supposed to fill out the field trip form, and they're showing that they're not able to handle legal custody. And sometimes it cracks me up, because I'm like, I always forget to fill out the field trip form. So it's true. It's true. Some of the smallest things become just like really blown out of proportion.
Oh my God, the pettiness.
So
oh gosh, I'm sure divorce brings out the petty in everybody. So is when two people agree that they should get divorced and it's not contentious at all, are those the easiest? I'm assuming that those are the easiest ones to kind of dissolve. Like,
so when you use the adjective easy, I'm like, easier.
Okay.
Yes, because then easier if you want to get a divorce, but you also want to be reasonable. I would add that. If you're reasonable, the marriage is in it, because you could have 50 million mediation sessions and be unable to reach a conclusion about what you're going to do about certain issues that need to be resolved. But easier, yes.
And so if you go through mediation and you don't come to an agreement, you're basically saying the judge needs to decide this. Is that that's
correct?
Okay.
That is correct.
So I want to ask you a couple more questions. One is about no fault divorces. So, when I was Googling like divorces, what's happening, what's the latest? One of the things that the Republican Party, particularly in Texas, is advocating for is to get rid of no fault divorces. That people, I guess some rich guy, his wife left him and he decided, or he was saying that she wanted a divorce and she just left, and that should not be allowed. And so they're kind of lobbying, or at least they're talking about the idea of getting rid of no fault divorces, at least in Texas.
Okay.
So first, can you explain what no fault divorces is and why, we could talk about why it's politicized right now, but what is a no fault divorce?
So no fault divorce is, so they're right now in Maryland until October, the legislation, I believe, is going to pass that there's going to be no fault divorce. DC, which I'm barred in DC, also has no fault divorce. What that means is right now in Maryland, you can file a divorce based on like grounds of adultery, which is a fault ground. It's someone's fault, right? Whereas no fault is like, we don't have to go through if you deserted the house. We don't have to go through excessive and vicious conduct. We don't have to go through whose fault it was. We don't have to put on any evidence, we don't have to go through all of that. We can just say we want to get a divorce, and that's it. Right now there's mutual consent divorce where you have to have an agreement in order to get a mutual consent divorce that addresses all the issues. But no fault will just say, we're not going to go through about whose fault it was. You want a divorce. That's it. So that it just simplifies, and it actually takes the drama out of, it's like, look, it's not working out. You want to get a divorce? Okay, fine. So it's making it a little more accessible without having to prove that one of the grounds, the fault grounds, has been established in the marriage.
So I guess they don't want, I mean, if you're talking about the right wingers who want to take this away, they don't want women to be able to make the decision to leave whenever they want. I forgot where I was
Is
going
that,
with
but
this
then
question.
why would they be, so then why, and I don't know, because I haven't been
Right.
following it, but
Mhm.
so why would then they want no fault divorce? Because no fault, I would think they would not want no fault. So
Yeah, they
that,
don't want no faults. They want to
oh,
stop
okay,
them.
okay, so
Yeah.
that makes sense. Well, good
Yeah.
luck trying.
Is there a reason that a judge wouldn't grant a divorce? Has that ever happened?
Oh, yeah, that's happened.
Why?
Oh,
On what grounds?
maybe they were intimate before they came to court.
First of all, why is that still a thing? Why does intimacy, how does that even make it to the courtroom? Who says,
All
who's
the
the snitch?
time.
Why is the
Let me
court still involved? If
people,
y'all still want to get it on and still get a divorce, why can't you? Why
because
can't
they
you?
didn't shut their, you know why? Because when they raised their hand and promised to tell the truth, the whole truth, they told a whole lot of truth when they were on the witness stand.
Why? I feel like that's so antiquated. I feel like saying that two adults, yes, they want to be separated. Maybe they don't want to be married, but maybe they still want to, why they still want to get it on? Why is that the judge's business? What does
And
that mean?
sometimes parties do that because they for many different reasons they may
Does it
not want.
extend the divorce time? It
Oh
extends.
yeah, yes, because if you're denied, then you have to come back. You have to come
Oh
back.
my God.
So it could be for monetary reasons that they do that. But yes, that's happened.
Dang, yo. Okay, this is my last question. How has working in this field, I don't want to get all in your business, but I do want to know, how has it changed your perception of marriage? How does it, um, how does it affect your own marriage? Like, how do you navigate the world of marriage based on what you do?
Donald, you there? You out there? That's my husband. Wait a minute. I got put there he is. There he is, all by
He on the wall.
one. He on the wall and in my heart. So I think it's made me thankful.
Hmm.
I think it's making me thankful. And I think it leads to I've got a little theory. I always say sometimes the people who should get divorced don't, and the ones that um yeah, the ones that should get divorced sometimes don't. And the ones that do get divorced shouldn't. What I mean by that is from an outside lens, I view, I think
Wait, say that again.
I'll say to myself, they couldn't work that out.
Okay. So you're like Michelle Obama, who feels like you go through a period of where she said the 10 years that she didn't like Barack at all. You
Uh,
go through a period that young people or that people give up too soon on marriages. Yeah.
yeah, this is grown woman. Like being married, we've been married for 20 years and we built our life together. So my husband and I met when I was in law school and he was in PT school. So we built this together. Like this didn't, and that's why I'm like the Sandra you see now, like he helped build this. I'm a product of the nights of him saying, okay, get your head in the game. Let's go do this, of him saying, okay, you want to do SMD. All right, you kind of outgrown where you are, turned over. Okay, go for it. And rolled back over and went to sleep. So it's, I had the right person. I have the right person to build with.
Mm-hmm.
And so you can't just throw that away, right?
Mm-hmm.
Marriage is not all glitz and glamour and Instagram and we in like, I don't even know wherever these people be traveling, we're not in Italy every week, that's just not real life. We are like, oh, dag, we got to pick up somebody from gymnastics, from soccer, from that's real life. And I think sometimes social media has done us a disservice.
Mm.
Done us
In
a
what way?
pretending that being married, being a wife, or husband it's not always rosy. It's not, there's sacrifice. There's give and take. There's days where I don't like you. There's days where he don't like me. There's days when I'm like, okay, over it. But I'm big on, you have to be committed. You're committed to your word. Are you committed to your word? And are you committed to the person that, if you have a good partner who has really built with you over time and laid their life down, might want to just get over some of the anger at times. And there go that faith again. Ask God to help you. So, and I'm not saying that for everyone. There are times when God, where it's time to move on. There's times when it's like, yeah, maybe that person is not for me. And if that's the case, you're young. Like I tell my clients at 67, you're young. You got a whole life to live. Life isn't over. Let's go. Pick yourself up. So that's what I would have to say about how, some days I go home and I'm like, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
It makes you grateful. Well,
grateful.
Based on what you said in this podcast, he don't want none. He's like, nah, I see what she do. I see what you be doing out there. I don't want those problems. I don't want those problems.
Over me.
Just kidding.
They're like, even my kids are like, we're not in court. I'm just like, whatever. But it is, I will say, as a litigator, and my colleagues have said this too. Like sometimes when you're talking, I'm like, can you just give me the information? Can you answer the question?
Look, I'm married to a lawyer. I know. I mean, we talk like you're not in court. I'm not a witness. He wants to argue like by asking me a series of questions.
That's how it goes. That's how our brain works.
First of all, I'm not on the stand, so I don't have to answer your questions.
But it's true. It's how our brain works. Our brain is like, okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, boom.
Look, you the female version of Derek. That's exactly how he is. So, but I want to thank you for coming on the podcast. This was a great conversation. Thank you for sharing your time.
Thank you for having me. It's been wonderful.
It's been great to talk. And for everybody else, I will see you next episode.